Sit! Welcome to the Dynasty Nerds Fantasy Football Podcast, where we discuss Dynasty strategy, rankings, and all things NFL. So get ready to geek out on fantasy football with your host, Rich Dotson.
And welcome to Dynasty Nerds Fantasy Football Podcast, NerdHerd edition. I am your host, Rich Dotson. Here are my fellow nerds, Matt O'Hara.
Hey.
And Garrett Price.
How's it going?
So today we're here in the NerdHerd episode. Now, we just did a lot of the rookie breakdown prospects of these prospects. So we're going to do a 2-round Superflex tight end premium draft. This is to let everybody know they're in a rookie draft, how we would take them in what order. We conducted a draft prior to this episode where the three of us each went down the list of who we would take on who is available in a Superflex tight end premium league. So there's not a lot of room here for debate to go back and forth of why some player took another player here. So we'll just let the person take their player, explain why they took the player, and went on. It's just a mock draft. So here we are. We're going to kick it into it. There's no need for build up. No need to talk for the next 5 minutes like I always do and tell you how good of a job I did here and how bad of a job Matt and Garrett did here or any of this. It's going to be a quicker show as long as I stop talking.
I'm going to say, you always warn people and be like, this will be a fast one. And then it's like an hour.
And then you're going to make a pick. I'm like, what is wrong with that stupid ass pick? You should have taken this guy because I like him more. So Matt is on the order is going to be Matt O'Hara, Rich Dotson, Garrett Price in that order. And we'll rotate through here. This is Superflex, tight end premium, no counter back and forth. Us making the picks, explain why we made the picks, and then the next person goes on the clock.
All
Matt,
right.
the 2021 rookie tight end premium Superflex mock draft is now open here in Cleveland. You are on the clock.
Wow. We're really burning through this with quickness.
Yeah.
Here we go. 1.01. I mean, it's an obvious pick.
Introduction over.
1.01. It's the obvious pick. I'm going Trevor Lawrence. Generational.
All right, let's talk about this.
Generational talent. One of the highest rated guys since, who knows,
ever.
Manning. Yeah. So he's amazing. There's no hesitation here. You should just take Trevor Lawrence, move on with your day. Have a great time. Easiest
pick of any draft at all this year is if you're in a Superflex league, it's Trevor Lawrence.
Yep.
Easily.
Yep.
So I'm going to clock here at 1-2. A lot of people are going to go Trey Lance here, Justin Fields, but I'm sticking with my guns. I'm going Zach Wilson. He was my favorite quarterback on tape that I watched coming into this process. He was the number 2 overall pick in this draft. And what's funny about it as well is like you didn't hear during commentary or throughout this process, like there's no way Zach Wilson should be the number 2 prospect. I mean, you hear guys say, what happened to Justin Fields? What about Trey Lance and that? But there wasn't really a lot of hate on Zach Wilson, which is odd because you do see a lot of that. But I really love his playing style. Again, he reminds me of Baker Mayfield. We mentioned on the last show, he goes into a situation where they improve the offensive line with Becton, Vera Tucker is it Vera Tucker? Elijah Vera Tucker at left guard at USC. They took him in the first round there to solidify the left side. Adam Michael Carter Jr. with Chris Herndon, all these weapons. Zach Wilson's in a really good spot here because he's got Denzel Mims for the next 3 years. He's got Elijah Moore for the next 4 years, and he's got Corey Davis for the next 3 years. So he's lined up with a receiving core that is very talented for the rest of his career to start here. And whichever one of those guys pans out and gets a good rapport with him are going to be a Jet for a very long time as well. I love Denzel Mims. His value gets a little murky here, but I still absolutely love Zach Wilson in Superflex leagues. I love his accuracy. I love how quick he gets the ball out. I think he's going to be a very, very solid fantasy football quarterback. And I love getting him here at 1-2 in Superflex leagues.
And this is another example of the Adam Gase effect where he leaves town and it goes from a complete dumpster fire offense that no one wants to have anything to do with to exactly the complete opposite, where it's just kind of like a flood. The floodgates have opened, and all of a sudden these are players and a team that you actually want to have pieces of. So that's great. Great news, I think, just for the future of fantasy football that he's no longer coaching.
Garrett, you're on the clock at 1-3.
Yeah, I'm staying put. Taking my second quarterback, and that's Justin Fields. All the reports that I've heard pre-draft, post-draft, there was that weird little, Dan Orlovsky thing that came out for like a hot second and was disproven by himself very quickly. But all the other reports are everything this kid touches turns to gold. Incredibly hard worker. The funny thing is, like, you saw his press conference and he didn't even smile really. And somebody was like, does he hate being like in Chicago? Like, why isn't he smiling? I was like, look, Justin Fields is a very serious kid. Like, everything is business to him. And that's how he was his entire career. Even Ryan Day talked about that, how, he wasn't one of the most like, lively joking guys, because he was always getting down to business. And I think that's what they need. They need a guy in Chicago that's ready to just get work done, not play around, not mess around. And I think he's going to be the leader of that franchise, even more so by deed than necessarily being this loud local vocal leader. So I'm excited for Chicago. It's a Midwest city that their football has been pretty tough to watch since the '85 Bears. I'm excited for them to finally get a quarterback. I think Justin Fields is that guy.
All right. So at 1.04, I'm going to go Trey Lance. We did this. We did a mock before the draft happened, and with the same pick, I picked Mac Jones, assuming that he was going to be with the San Francisco 49ers. It did not turn out that way. So when he didn't and Trey Lance did, I flip-flopped these two players. I had mentioned that they were very close in my standings to begin with. And Trey Lance just offers a ton of upside. And I think that's also what Kyle Shanahan saw when he drafted him over Mac Jones. So he was in a pro-style offense. He was a guy that took the most snaps under center out of any of these top quarterback prospects, because that's the kind of offense they run there. And that's something that Kyle Shanahan wants to do. He wants to get a guy under center. He wants to get him on these bootleg and rollout type of plays. And I know, looking at Trey Lance, he's going to fit perfect into this offense. He's going to be able to do all the movement stuff, and then he's going to add rushing totals on top of that as well. So this is a very high upside, maybe the highest upside quarterback in this draft.
Are you guys pretty firm on the first four picks should be quarterbacks? Because I'm in some Superflex time premium drafts right now. I've seen Kyle Pitts go 1-2. I've seen Najee go ahead of Zach Wilson. It looks like Zach Wilson, to a lot of people, is the odd guy out here. He's in that Daniel Jones effect where he's going anywhere from 1-6 to 1-8 in Superflex leagues, which blows my mind. But for me, it's these four every time. Like Trevor Lawrence 1-1 every time, and then however how you like them, 2, 3, 4 between Wilson, Fields, and Lance. But to me, I think those should be the first four picks in every draft, my opinion.
I'm with you there as well. Obviously, there are extenuating circumstances. If you've drafted 3 quarterbacks in a row and you're good at the position, 3 years in a row you've landed the top guy or something like that, and
you're right,
and you have an absolute hole at your tight end position, then go Pitts. You know what I mean? Yeah. Or if you're like you landed this thing and you're set everywhere else and you need a running back and that's your last piece, then go grab your top rated running back. For me, it's Javonte Williams. For you, Rich, it's Najee Harris. Either one of those guys is fine with me, somewhere in that top 4, if that's where your biggest need is and it's the last piece or something like that. But if it just in a vacuum, it's these top 4 guys.
I did a Superflex mock draft with Matt Hicks right after the draft. Actually, the final round, we were in like round 7 while we were doing it, but it was a super flex draft, and I ended up getting basically all the quarterbacks. I had the 1-2 pick, so I took Justin Fields, and then at 1-5 I took Trey Lance, and then I was going to be on the clock again at 1-7 and almost got Zach Wilson. He went right before me, and then at 2:02 I got Mac Jones. So I'm definitely on a same accord with you guys. These quarterbacks are all very, very talented guys. If it was next year, Mac Jones might be the top quarterback in next year's class. Like that's how good this group is. So I have no problem going with all the quarterbacks pretty early.
All right. I'm going to clock here at 1-5. I'm taking Kyle Pitts. Yes, I'm taking Kyle Pitts. I've had every running back and every receiver in this draft in a tight end premium league. He just went number 4 overall in NFL draft. He was the first skill position player off the board in the NFL draft that was not a quarterback, or any position that wasn't a quarterback, because he's a generational talent. Goes to a really good situation. Calvin Ridley, Julio Jones, who's getting a little bit older, not going to be there for much longer. But again, a very good situation. This man will be a focal point of this offense. Definitely when Julio leaves, he is the next high-end tight end. And anytime you get a high-end tight end in Superflex tight end premium leagues, they're worth more than QB2s. You would start, if Kyle Pitts turns into Travis Kelce, you're starting him over most quarterbacks as it is. This is a high-end player, a high-end pick. Like Matt said, if you're good on quarterback, this should be the next selection. I am not taking any other position besides quarterback in a tight end premium league over Kyle Pitts. He's too talented. He's too good. He's pretty much Calvin Johnson playing tight end. I absolutely love it. He's that dominant. And I use Calvin Johnson because Calvin Johnson was an absolute dominant player. That's what Kyle Pitts is. Cornerbacks are too small. Linebackers are too slow. He's a mismatch. Wherever you put him on the field, that's equal to a ton of fantasy football production. And I love him getting here at 1-5.
I'm on the clock at 1-6. And before I talk about Javonte Williams, which is my selection at 1-6, I did want to ask Matt. I thought I heard you say it just a second ago, but I wanted to make sure. Is it still Javonte over Najee for you, or has that switched?
It hasn't switched. No, Javonte's still my number one.
Okay. I wasn't sure because I know for some people, they hated the Denver landing spot, which I don't think it's that bad at all. But there were some people that were like, oh, he's definitely moving down my board. I saw, a 1 QB league where he was taken at like 6 or 7. And I was kind of puzzled by that. Like, I think that's where he should go in a super flex league is around 6 or 7. So I'm taking Javonte Williams. I talked about him on taking my my earbuds out as well, apparently, as I'm talking here. But I still absolutely love Javonte Williams. I don't think that it's a bad landing spot in the least. I like what Denver's doing. They just bolstered their line by taking Quinn Merritt's in the third round, which is a guy that has really soared up boards, and I think he's a talented player. I know Melvin Gordon is going to be a little bit of a pain for a little bit that first year, but I just think he's basically as good as Melvin Gordon was as a rookie, but now he's 28 years old. So you get a younger, fresher, better at this point in his career version of Melvin Gordon. So I'm very excited to still be able to get him at 1-6. I know for some people, there's a couple players they might have high. I've heard some people that fell in love with some of the receivers that they might take over some of these running backs, but he's still going to be my guy at 1-6.
And at 1-7, I'm going Najee Harris. I'm still going running backs here. You mentioned people falling in love with the wide receivers. There's just a lot more volume there. There are more wide receivers available. That's why these guys keep getting pushed up. That's why Najee Harris got pushed up. And on top of that, he's a very good player as well. Mm-hmm. So I think you mentioned it, Garrett, a bunch of times that he's very safe. And that is how I feel. Even behind the Pittsburgh offensive line, which isn't the best, they did spend a 3rd and 4th round draft pick to bolster that offensive line a bit. But it's not the best offensive line. They used to be a dominant offensive line. They've had a lot of turnover there. A lot of people have walked out the door there in the past couple of years. So, obviously, right now, Najee, he might not be what he is in 3 years, and that's okay with me. You know what I mean? You're getting him here at 7. That's a great spot. He's going to be a high end guy for the next probably 5 years. He's one of the. I don't think he's a 2 to 3 year window guy. You know what I mean? I think but he's not like a 10-year guy. I think he's kind of in the middle somewhere, and by the time he's hitting his stride, this team is going to look completely different. The offensive line is going to be much better. The quarterback situation is going to be completely different. So that's why I'm taking Najee here.
Yeah, love that pick. I'm on the clock here at 1-8, and I'm taking Devontae Smith, my number 1 receiver on the board. Again, it's 1A, 1B with Chase. So I don't want to be like, oh, you don't like Jamar Chase. I love him equally here. Jamar Chase finds himself in a little bit more of a crowded situation. I know he's got that rapport with Joe Burrow. I know him and Joe Burrow at 1,700 yards, 20 touchdowns. I love it, but I love T. Higgins too. He's just too good. And they got Joe Mixon, a very fine running back. So I'm going Devontae Smith, where he's going to do an Eagles situation where he's the number 1 receiver in that team with not a whole lot of competition. I mean, Jalen Reagor is a nice receiver, but he's not Devontae Smith. They got 2 very talented tight ends, but Zach Ertz isn't going to be there much longer. And Miles Sanders has a lot of talent, but he's got to still prove that he could do it that next level at the NFL. And they bring a guy like Kenneth Gainwell, who could possibly take away some of his receiving ability. I think Devontae Smith is the best weapon on this offense. And I think right away he's going to be the number 1 guy and be force-fed targets from a guy he already has some rapport with and a guy that Jalen Hurts too. So I think Devontae Smith has come in right away, help your dynasty team, help your fantasy team, potentially give you wide receiver 2 numbers right out the gate, which is pretty much unprecedented nowadays versus the wide receiver position. I think worst case, he's a wide receiver 3 this year, but I think Javonte Smith is going to give you something what a lot of rookie receivers can't do, and that's be able to plug and play into your lineup from day one. So I'm taking Javonte Smith here at 1-8.
All right, and that left Ja'Marr Chase for me at 1-9, and it's so close between the two guys. I also have Devonta Smith or a little bit higher than I do Ja'Marr Chase, but this is a passing offense that is going to chuck the ball a ton. They had 581 pass attempts last season. I get it that Tyler Boyd's there. I get it that T. Higgins are there. I think both of those guys will be taking a lot of targets, but there's still plenty to go around for a guy like Ja'Marr Chase. He already has the rapport with Joe Burrow. It was a guy that, Joe was really pushing for them to get, which I think part of that was, they were teammates, but I think he realizes how talented and how special Ja'Marr Chase is, so much so that he's willing to risk life and limb by not getting Soul there. He wanted to make sure he got that dynamic playmaker in Ja'Marr Chase. So, and they were able to get an offensive tackle in the second round, which I think helped as well. So I do really still like Ja'Marr Chase here, one of the more physically dominant wide receivers in this class. And I mentioned it before, I wanted to make sure I had the exact stat. 581 pass attempts from that offense last year. And let's remember that only half of those were from Joe Burrow. They probably lessened the pass attempts because the offense was poo-poo under, Ryan Finley, and they had somebody else starting at some point. I don't remember, but they're going to be reaching 600 pass attempts this season.
No doubt. Okay. So at 110, I'm going to go Travis Etienne. And this is another one of these situations where the running backs get a boost. I could have gone Mac Jones, and that was the guy I was kind of going in between. But I think Travis Etienne will find himself into a much larger role than the Jaguars head coach is letting on at this point. So Herb's kind of giving everyone, the coach speech here. Then you make a draft pick and kind of make them earn it instead of just handing them a job. So I think it's just a matter of time before Travis Etienne's explosiveness kind of wins the day there and takes over the majority of the carries in the Jacksonville backfield. So Travis Etienne here at 110, I feel like it is pretty good value.
Yeah, so I'm going to clock here at 111, and I'm really torn here because I got Jalen Waddle on the board, and I want to reemphasize, if you didn't watch the last show or you just watched this YouTube show or listen to this podcast, where Jalen Waddle went extremely high in the NFL draft. He went 1-6 overall, but you got to remember that it wasn't just 1-6. The Miami Dolphins traded up to 1-6 to get Jalen Waddle, and they gave up a future first to do so. So there's a lot of draft capital behind Jalen Waddle, who offers some of the highest upside here out of all these fantasy football players. But that being said, at 111, there's not a lot of opportunities you get in Superflex leagues that get rookie quarterbacks that were first-round picks this late in the draft. And I just can't pass up Mac Jones, especially the fact where, do I love Mac Jones as a fantasy football prospect? Not a ton, but I do love him with Bill Belichick, because if anybody's going to build an offense on a quarterback of his similar style, which is going to be that, essentially a Tom Brady style, a quarterback who you're not going to have move around a lot. He's going to get the ball out quick and be very smart with the football and make good decisions. Is what are they going to do to build around Mac Jones for the long-term future here, who's your first-round pick? This is the guy for the Patriots going forward for the next 4 years, probably at least. So for me, this is trade. As much as I love Jalen Waddle, I can't pass up on a quarterback like Mac Jones, who's going to be throwing a ton of footballs to James White and his tight ends. And then they're going to find out who else they're going to throw the football from 22 and beyond, because there's nobody else to really throw the football to unless N'Keal Harry can take a big step forward, but he's got to get those cement blocks off his feet to do so. So for me, I'm taking Mac Jones here, and I feel very good about it because I just got a young first-round quarterback at 111, and I'm picking at 111. So this is my natural pick. I'm already a contender. He's going right to my taxi squad, and I can sit on for a little bit and let that value grow. And either I use him down the road or he shows enough where I can now move this piece for any other piece that I need, whether it be tight end, running back, or wide receiver, either straight up or in a package deal. to guarantee or put me in the best position to win the championship for 2022, 2023.
And you made my life easy because it was going to be down to whoever was left between Mac Jones and Jalen Waddle. So I'm glad you took one of those two guys to make my life a lot easier. So you went with Mac Jones. I ended up going with Jalen Waddle, and he did move up a spot. Maybe it was 2 spots. I don't remember if he ended up being 4 or 5 for me pre-draft. I'd go back and check, but he did move up a spot. I really love him getting paired up with Tua Tagovailoa. I love what's going on in that Miami offense. And I think he can be a low A-dot guy where he's getting the ball close to the line of scrimmage and then making plays, but he can also do the deep down the field stuff. Obviously, he's one of the fastest players we've seen in the past few drafts come out. So he's very special in that sense. Still really solid route runner, a little more wiggle than your typical straight line speed guys. So I think there's just a lot that he can offer, and it's just really good upside. But you could make an argument for the next 4 wide receivers that go, and I really wouldn't have a big issue with it. I think all 4 of these guys are in really solid positions one way or another. So I like all of these guys. Jalen Waddle just presented the most upside here, and that's what I wanted to go with.
Yes, I would feel different. I would have a problem. I feel like Jalen Waddle is in a tier, and then there's the next tier. Because like you mentioned, all the things he does well, we're going to talk about him as a prospect in our future shows here. You go back and listen to our old shows, how much we like Jalen Waddle, but like you mentioned, route running, hands, all that, what he brings to the table. I think the fact that you just got him at 112 shows the depth of this class and what the quarterbacks pushing these players down could be. And I understand, you're taking him ahead of a guy like Mac Jones, but we preach all the time when it comes to Superflex, quarterback is king. Now I'm taking kings, not princes here. So Matt, you're on the clock here at 2-1.
At 2-1, I'm going to go Elijah Moore. It's a prospect that we all kind of universally loved. And I mentioned it before, the Jets offense went from this dumpster fire that nobody wanted to have anything to do with when Adam Gase was there, and it's completely turned around now that they got a fresh offensive coordinator coming in there in Mike LaFleur, rather. And Elijah Moore, he just offers so much upside, and he does so much good work with that ball in his hands, just close to the line of scrimmage. And he can also get down the field. He's a 4.3 guy. He's super fast. He's got great hands. So I love Elijah Moore, obviously getting paired up with the young rookie quarterback, Zach Wilson, who I'm a big fan of as well. So it's just a great situation. It's not going to take him very long, in my opinion, to establish himself as probably the best wide receiver there on the roster. And he's going to be getting a ton of targets. So I really like this, like the picker, like the player, and I like the landing spot.
Yeah, and at 2-2, I'm coming in with a lot of the same things that you said, and I'm taking Rashad Bateman of the Baltimore Ravens coming out of Minnesota. This is a player that's immediately going to come into the Ravens and be the number 1 receiver on this team. He's easily the best route runner on this team, so he should be able to get separation and get open. Obviously, the biggest problem here is the Ravens offense that they run last in pass attempts, last in pass and offense, just a run-first football team. And they're going to have J.K. Dobbins as the man, which I expect that to expand. And obviously Lamar Jackson, the number 1 running back quarterback in the league as well. But, I mean, we saw that they were talking about the receiving position. They draft 2 more receivers. They add Bateman and Wallace. So maybe this is a team that wants to step it up and try to throw the football more. And if they're going to pay Lamar Jackson long-term, which is he's due, they might wait till after the season to go through. And this might be an experiment to see if Lamar Jackson can take a step forward in the passing game before they lock him up for $40 million a year for 5 years. So I think Bateman, if Lamar Jackson is taking a step forward in the passing game, Bateman's got to be a big part of that. And he's immediately be the number 1 receiver. He's got the draft catapult. And I absolutely love the prospect on film. So for me, this is an easy decision. Hate the landing spot. Don't like it, but I'm going to trust the tape, and I'm going to trust the player to rise to the top here to be the number 1 target in the passing game, him and Mark Andrews. So to me, I like this player too much not to take Rashad Bateman.
Yeah, I have no problem with that at all. And this really ends a tier for me now, getting the guy I'm getting here with Rondale Moore at 2-3. Rondale is just such a nice fit for this offense. But more importantly, I do believe in the player. I do believe in his just raw athletic ability. He's crazy fast, very, very strong for his size, and very strong, period. But we saw him dominate the Big Ten as a true freshman. There's even star first round players can't always say that they dominated a conference as a true freshman. It's absolutely wild what he was able to do. There are some injury concerns, but I see him just seamlessly coming in, becoming the wide receiver 2 on this offense. Still going to be a lot of close to the line of scrimmage stuff, but I think they're going to manufacture touches. And I think he's going to be the safety valve often for Kyler Murray when he's, the play breaks down and he's moving around. Rondale Moore is going to be that guy that's open, and you get Rondale Moore in space, it gets real scary for the defenses real fast. So I think it's a slam dunk pick, and we're starting to see that depth dwindle. The first round, beginning of the second round are real nice, and then you get to that middle of the second round, and then it's just that depth is gone.
Says you. 2-4. I'm going Terrace Marshall, wide receiver Pittsburgh or Pittsburgh, wide receiver Panthers. So yeah, we mentioned it on the other podcast that obviously Joe Brady is there as offensive coordinator, and he knows Terrace Marshall well from his time as LSU offensive coordinator. So we went and snatched this guy in the second round, later in the second round. I think it was 27th or something like that. But it's a nice fit. Obviously, Robbie Anderson is there now, but this is his last year in on his contract anyway with the Panthers. And Terrace Marshall, I think, is a perfect fill-in guy and kind of fits the mold of Robbie Anderson and get downfield. He's big, he's fast. He does have some consistency issues with his hands, I think, close to the line of scrimmage, but it doesn't show up as much when he's downfield. So I think Terrace Marshall is going to be a nice little fit there with the Panthers. Not only this year, but in the future as well.
Well, I was just saying, I just made a rookie draft pick in one of my leagues. The draft just opened, and I had a 1-1 for a pick I traded for last year. So it worked out into being a 1-1. You got to love that. 1 QB league. I took Najee Harris.
Oh, wow.
Thank you. Hold the
applause
till after the show, please.
Yeah.
I'm on the clock next year. Now, the fact that Terrace Marshall's gone here makes me a little upset because that's who I was hoping to fall to me here. Now, we did this draft early this afternoon, and I took Trey Sermon at 2.5. I took 2.5.
Yep.
So the pick is in. That's what I take. I'm going to caveat that, though. I think I would flip flop it now if I had to go back. I would probably take Michael Carter here because I love that all the reasons I said why I like Zach Wilson, and I love that outside zone scheme that Carter is going to be in. And there's a little bit of a mix with Raheem Mostert right away there with San Fran, but I'm okay. They're very close to me. So I took Trey Sermon here. And the reason being is he's in San Francisco. They traded up to get him. They gave up 2 4th-round picks to get him. This is a system where Kyle Shanahan, any running back they have there, they produce. When he was in Atlanta, their running backs produce. When he was in Cleveland, the running backs produced. Anywhere Kyle Shanahan falls, you have a very relevant fantasy football running back under his coach and tutelage. So to me, the fact they traded up with him tells me here in the 3rd round, which we all know is good draft capital for a running back, that he's going to be the guy here in San Francisco in some aspect. And I will take that because he made stars out of Raheem Mostert, Jeff Wilson, guys that were helping you win championships. And that's what I'm looking for. I'm trying to win some championships. I think Trey Sermon, where again, his tape wasn't something I overly loved, but good enough vision in this system that he could produce, good enough hands where he could produce. So I'm taking Trey Sermon here for the San Francisco 49ers. A starter running back potential here in the 2nd round. I just can't pass up definitely in the 2nd round. So I'm taking Trey Sermon.
At 2.7, I'm taking Amon-Ra St. Brown. Amon-Ra was my wide receiver 7 coming out. So I talked about that tier that I had. He was the very beginning of the next tier. Really loved his tape. When we talked about Amon-Ra, I kept gushing about just how smooth and efficient he is, gets off the line really well. And I saw him drop a little bit in the draft, and I was very, very perplexed as to why he was dropping. I thought for sure that he was going to get that day 2 capital. Ended up getting snatched up very, very early on day 4. And even though I've mentioned a bunch of times, landing spot isn't going to change much for me, this was just such a juicy landing spot that it kept him exactly where I had him, which I probably would have done anyway. But it just helped affirm that because I think Amon-Ra legitimately could potentially have the most targets out of any of the rookie wide receivers in year one. There's just like the depth chart right now is Quintez Cephas, Tyrell the Gazelle, and Rashad Bateman. I have not heard of a room with more Jags in it than that.
Not Rashad Bateman.
Yeah,
sorry.
But he's just
Rashad Perriman. Rashad Perriman. Sorry.
They got like Geronimo Allison, I think, on the roster too somewhere.
Woo, Geronimo. Yeah.
Jump off my roster.
That's him falling off the team. So I'm all on board Amon-Ra St. Brown train. We know he's a hard worker, comes from, good lineage of NFL players. So I'm all about Amon-Ra. I'm going to have him on a lot of teams this year.
Yeah, very good value here. Very good value at 2.6. Probably one of those players you look back at 3 years from now, like, how is Amon-Ra St. Brown going in the second round? We all knew Detroit needed to throw the ball to somebody. Obviously, TJ Hawkinson, the biggest winner out of this draft out of everybody. Absolutely. But this is tremendous value here at 2.6.
Yeah, absolutely. And at the actual 2.7 pick, which Garrett tried to claim for his own.
Did I say that? Sorry, my fault.
I'm gonna take Michael Carter, and it's for all the reasons you already said, Rich. I love it. I love the fit in the outside zone scheme here with the Jets. I think Michael Carter is a guy that he doesn't have as much wiggle as his running mate there in North Carolina, Javonte Williams. So I think he is a guy that can get his foot, work that outside zone, put his foot in the ground and go. And that's kind of his game to a T. So I think he's going to fit really well in that offense, in that scheme. And there's just not a whole heck of a lot there in front of him as well. So, it's LaMichael P. Ryan from last year, and not a whole lot of other talented backs. Yeah.
Ty Johnson played a little bit last year and looked decent, but anytime you have a new regime, basically anybody that's not a superstar are expendable.
And that's Ty Johnson does look good at times.
He did,
but so did James Robinson. What happened to him?
So I think
don't bring that up again.
I think the main point is that it's a new regime, and even if they didn't draft LaMichael P. Ryan, they have no real ties to him. Who knows if they see him as a system fit or not? But they went out and drafted Michael Carter, so I know that they like him. And without a lot of talent there, I'm going to pick him here and feel pretty good about it.
Yeah, you got essentially what I would interpret as a starter and running back at 2.7. That's fantastic. I'm at 2.8.
Oh, one guy we forgot to mention that is there, and it's somebody that they're familiar with that they brought in. I know you guys don't like him much, but Tevin Coleman is there in New York, and he could be a thorn in the side, especially for some of the early down work.
For like I said, day,
Matt just got pretty much a starting quarterback at running back.
Got a starting quarterback. Is it Leonard Fournette?
Oh my gosh, he can play tight end.
He can play any position.
But yeah, I mean, we all know what he is. He's going to pull his hamstring.
I agree. I'm just saying it's a guy that he had on his old offense that he brought with him.
Yeah.
So
I think it's a good guy to have in a running back room to say, hey, this is how you run it. I can't do it anymore, but this is how you run it.
Oh, my hamstring.
Yep. My hamstring hurts.
What happened to it? Did you pull it? Nah, it's never. They never reattach it to the bone. It's just always loose. So I'm on a clock here at 2.8, and I'm really torn between Kadarius Toney at wide receiver, who's got the first round capital, and Pat Freiermuth. And the reason I have Pat Freiermuth here is, and who I'm selecting is because it's tight end premium, and I like Kadarius Toney a ton, and I like his upside. But again, when I'm in tight end premium leagues, at the back end of the second, if I have an opportunity to add a guy on a team that's been looking for a tight end for a while, Mike Tomlin hasn't really had anything since Heath Miller there at the position, who they invested in second round draft capital when they desperately need offensive line help, which is, so they just saw this was a clear win at the position where that from comes a ranking standpoint. I just like Pat Freiermuth too much. He looked really good at Penn State, an all around bona fide tight end who might offer some of that Rob Gronkowski upside. You know what I mean? Like that big bodied moving tight end, a Hunter Henry plus kind of guy. So for me, getting a Pat Freiermuth here, if in a tight end premium league, if he could turn out to be anywhere from tight end 6 to 8, he's given me in a tight end premium league wide receiver 2 numbers, which is what I expect Toney to kind of be here. So to me, I will take the more shallow position and take Freiermuth. It was really close for me. I wanted to take Toney, but being tight end premium, I got to go with one of my tight ends here and take Pat Freiermuth, the Pittsburgh Steeler.
Yeah, I can't blame you at all. I ended up then taking Kadarius Toney right after it. Part of it is you get to the end of the second round and you're getting a first round wide receiver. Like just on draft capital alone, even if you're not a fan, it just screams value. And I think at some point you just have to gobble up value where you can. And I do think that, and I'm also my approach to fantasy football is basically top half of the second round and down, obviously into the first round. I want to make sure those picks hit. But after that, I'm just going for upside. Like, I really don't care about anything else after about 2.5, 2.6 range. I really don't care about anything else other than upside. And Kadarius Toney is one of those guys that just has some crazy upside. Will he be a little bit boom or bust at times? Probably. But it's an ascending offense with a young quarterback, young running back, some young other receivers. But yet there's really no true established pass catchers there. He could play real well early. He could establish himself as the main guy, or I could be lighting this pick on fire. I really don't know, but the upside is just too much to pass on at 2.9.
Yeah, and it go two ways here. I mean, like you said, it's too good a value here. I was really torn not taking them there ahead of Freiermuth, and it go two ways. I mean, we saw a player in a similar position over the last couple of years, a guy like last year, Brandon Ayuk, right?
Yep.
First round draft capital, still slipped in a lot of drafts. Now look at him. Everybody wants him on their dynasty roster. Or it could be like a Josh Dotson, really good high draft capital, does
Marquise
nothing.
Brown.
A Marquise Brown, same as that. It can go either way. So, yeah. But right now I'm with you. You can't pass on it. Matt, you're on the clock.
So at 210, I'm going to go Amari Rodgers. And, this is obviously a guy that we liked pre-draft, and he fell in a great situation in Green Bay. Well, we think it's a great situation.
Probably.
If Aaron Rodgers is there, it's a great situation in Green Bay. If it's not, then it's a horrible situation because, I'm not a big fan of Jordan Love. Obviously, there's been talks that he's just so erratic in practice that even the backup quarterback might be the guy to take over if Aaron Rodgers, the other backup, I can't remember his name, if Aaron Rodgers was to retire suddenly. So Amari Rodgers, obviously now I feel, 210, there's a ton of upside there. There is some volatility just based on the situation with Aaron Rodgers. But I still feel like it offers enough upside that I'm pretty lucky to get him here at 210.
All right. I'm going to clock with my last pick here at 211. I'm taking Nico Collins. If you've been listening to Dynasty Nerds podcast or watching our YouTube channel, you know that I'm a big Nico Collins fan, and I had him somewhere right around here. I said by the time the draft rolls around, I hope I can still get him right somewhere in the back end of the second round for me. And this is right where he slides into. He gets decent for a guy who got opted out of 2020, gets drafted in the third round. A guy coming out of Michigan who didn't show a lot while I was there, but I really like what I saw on tape. The big body receiver. They don't have a lot there. They have Brandon Cooks. They still got Isaiah Coulter, who's another young prospect that I like. We don't know what's going on there at the quarterback situation. It sounds like from going forward, Deshaun Watson will not play for the Houston Texans ever again. But they got Tyrod Taylor there for now. They have Davis Mills there as well. Again, this is Dynasty. So where Nico Collins is going to take some time to acclimate to NFL for not playing for a year, I'm looking for him to be that big body number one receiver on that team for the 2022 season, whoever that QB may be. But what's good about this as well is this team is really bad. So they're constantly playing from behind, and they're going to be constantly throwing the football a ton. And right now, I like Nico Collins' talent against anybody. I mean, obviously, Brandon Cooks is the best receiver on the team, but I would take Nico Collins over Isaiah Coulter, and that's a guy who I like coming out as well. So for me, a player that I loved pre-draft process, I was higher on than most were, finally lands in a really good spot with opportunity. And by opportunity, I mean quicker path to the starting lineup, and should see a ton. If he gets in the starting lineup, this seems to be playing from behind all the time. Should see a ton of targets, which are going to equal to fantasy football production. Nico Collins is exactly where I want him, right here at the back end of the second. Some leagues I'll probably be able to get him in the top of the third because they don't like him as much as me. But I love his landing spot, and I love the player. Have me take him here at 211.
He would have been my pick at 212. And at 212, I really, really struggled with who to take. There were a lot of the options that I liked had dried up. I was hoping maybe Amari Rodgers, maybe Nico, maybe, some of these guys might fall. They didn't. There's really not a lot of running backs left. I could maybe make an argument for Kenneth Gainwell, in Philadelphia. I could maybe make an argument for Cornell Powell, who ended up getting drafted by the Chiefs. I really like that. But I drafted this guy because, one, I do like him. He ended up coming in with my, I believe, 12th highest or 13th highest nerd score at the position. But we also didn't get a chance to talk about him at all during the pre-draft process, and I just evaluated his tape just in time to get a nerd score. And so I was glad I was able to do that before. But Amir Smith Marset out of Iowa. Iowa's a school that doesn't produce a lot of high-flying offensive talent. It's, offensive linemen and tight ends. Like that's what they produce. They're not producing a lot of quarterbacks. They're not producing a lot of receivers and not many running backs. It's, you don't see that a lot. But Amir Smith Marset is a fantastic athlete. He's got good size that he's 6'1.5". And I just really, really enjoyed his tape. His numbers weren't, off the wall or anything like that, but he had a good chunk of the team's market share. He ended up going in the 5th round here to Minnesota. And I also really liked that landing spot because Minnesota, one, is a team that has utilized low round wide receivers in the past. Stephon Diggs was a 5th round wide receiver. Adam Thielen went undrafted. So it's a team that I think that they are willing to invest in some of those guys. But I also think that with Adam Thielen being a little bit older, he's going to be turning 31 this year. And outside of that, it's guys like Chad Beebe and Olabisi Johnson and just a bunch of Jags that there is a lot of upside in his game and the opportunity that I think we could see something end up happening here at 212.
That's it. That's our first round, 2-round rookie mock draft. There's still a lot of guys here that you can consider. We like all 3 quarterbacks here in Davis Mills, Kellen Mond, Kyle Trask offers some good value here. There's some receivers still on the board here. Running backs, maybe you need to run back like a guy like Ramondre Stevenson's in a really good spot. Austin Watkins is like good 2nd round, 4th round value here. But a lot of good players still here, still on the board if we would enter the 3rd round.
Definitely.
All right, that's it. We'll be back next week breaking down all these players in order, how we have them ranked. Can't get wait to it. Make sure that like button, subscribe button. Make sure to catch all our Dynasty content, and we'll be back next week.
Adios.